Alright, so left off on the Cyclops character at this point. I've got just up to this point here where I have his leg. And this is what I've got so far, what it looks like in perspective view. So there it is. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start to model the arm. And in order to do this, instead of going, generally I would prefer him to be in a T-pose, but I don't have his reference in a T-pose. So if you ever run into this error, I'm going to show you an easy way on how to go about sorting this issue out. So what we'll do is instead we will begin by modeling out the arm according to this reference, and then when it's said and done, and we have enough information there, we're just going to rotate that arm. And that's in order to keep the correct scale of the length of the arm in comparison to the leg and the torso and the rest of the body. We don't want to eyeball it, because then things just seem to not work out right when you do that. So I'm going to change my subdivision axes to 8 once again. I'm going to go ahead and move this into place, do the same exact thing that I just did with the leg, and I'm going to go ahead and go to face mode and delete those faces. And now in here I am ready to begin the process of modeling it. So I can start, I could start here at the wrist, which isn't an issue, and then I'll just run my way up the wrist model itself, and I'll do the hands last. And I'm going to start by going into edge mode, and I'm going to follow the same exact process. I'm going to extrude out, I'm going to extrude up, in, up, out, up, in, and now I'm going to go up the arm. And what I'm seeing right away is I could probably move. I'll just stick with what I've got so far. Maybe if I just take the entire thing slightly over, and maybe there we go. And I'm going to have to imply a little bit of this because his arm is obviously on an angle, so that doesn't help. But in the end, it will all seem correct. And now you start to see his elbow start to come into play here. Okay. And just to continue your way up the model. And I might even make more adjustments to this as I continue working my way up, and then at the end when I rotate it. But for the time being, I'm going to sort of do my best to capture the size of his massive shoulders. And this really needs to be like this. And in here I'm going to use the multi-cut tool, and I'm just going to cut right around here and select that edge loop, and there we go. Okay, so that's that. That gives me the shape of it. Now, one thing I'm going to need to keep in mind is if I hold D, that activates my pivot point. And I'm going to align my pivot point right over here, right with the mesh. And I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to select vertice mode just because it's a little bit quicker sometimes. to select things, and I'm going to scale these so they're flat. Oop. Make sure you select all of them. In this case, maybe the edge is better to select, and scale those so they're flat. And now I'm going to rotate my arm just like so. And now I've got the correct, actually before I do that, I need to go in here and actually readjust it. So I'm going to select just the arm, and I'm going to shift select the side viewport, and I'm going to hit Shift I, and that's going to allow me to just see both the arm and just the image plane, or the image reference side. And I'm going to add this selected object here so I get my yellow. It's a little bit easier for me to see, and you'll notice here his arm is actually like so, and even smaller. And now I'm going to rotate back into position. Something like that. Okay. Go ahead, take this one, move back. And I'm going to do this for all the edges and just go ahead and follow that reference all the way through. And I'm just selecting and matching it up to the reference itself. And then here, here, and there. Okay, so now that that's lined up, I have the shape of his arm in there. I'm going to soften my edge there to give it more of a smooth look. And now you'll see I've got the arm going. Now, like I had mentioned earlier, I want to make sure that I model this at a when I'm ready to model it, I'm going to bring it up to the side. If your reference is already in a T-pose, that's excellent. But for here, I was going to continue, but I think I'll save that for the next video, where I'll get in the hands and I'll connect the fingers and stuff, and then I'll rotate the arm into place just to make sure I get the correct length on the hand and fingers. And then the other thing is before I even do that, actually, I will model in the body to make sure I'm getting the correct size of this character. So that's the arm and the leg in place. We'll follow up the next video with the main chest area, the torso, and the upper body, and then we'll get into connecting the torso. But first, before we connect the torso, we'll add fingers, hands, and we'll get that going. So that's up. We're ready for this up to this point to begin the torso next, and then we'll get into everything else. And we'll get into extra details later, but we're just creating sort of this base mesh, as I called this layer, base mesh. And then I'll get into finer details later. But this is where we're at now, and thanks for watching.